My son's scheming wife sneered, calling me a washed-up carpenter she'd scam for $75 until my hidden tape blew her ruthless plan apart. If you cheer for underdogs crushing greedy plots, hit like share with the fighters, and subscribe for epic tales of justice. I'm Tom Carver, a 68-year-old carpenter standing on the windswept beach of Wilmington, North Carolina, where the sand's cold under my boots and the lighthouse cuts through the night like a heartbeat. The salt air stings, carrying memories of Evelyn, my wife, gone 2 years now. She left me a chain of beachside resorts worth $75 million, places she called lighthouses, by the shore because they gave families a safe harbor from life's storms. Not glitzy hotels or cheap rentals, but sturdy homes, wood and brick, tested by hurricanes built to last. Evelyn was the dreamer sketching plans under lantern light. I was the hands carving beams and hammering nails. Together we made those lighthouses shine. I can still see her on that first job spring of '89, standing on this same beach, hair wild in the wind, clutching a screwdriver like a sword. "Tom," she grinned, "get this light working, and it'll guide the whole damn world." I was all thumbs fumbling with wires, but she showed me step by patient step, until the bulb flickered on, piercing the dark. Our boy David, just 5, clapped and hollered king and queen of the sea as the beam swept over the waves. That wasn't just a light, it was us, our strength, our promise to keep the glow alive. Those days life felt solid as the oak frames I carved with David at my side whittling his first toy boat under my eye. But cancer came and Evelyn faded fast. In her final days, her breath thin as fog, she grabbed my hand, calluses against calluses, and her eyes earned. "Tom," she whispered urgent, "don't sign anything, don't tell anyone, not even David. The lighthouses will show you the way. Promise me." Tears blurred my sight, but I nodded. David was our heart, my little buddy, who'd fall asleep in my lap during storms, his tiny hands clutching my flannel. Why hide this from him? I thought she was just scared. But Evelyn always saw the squall before it hit. I promised, not knowing that vow would become my anchor. Now alone on this beach, I get it. My hands rough from decades of saws and sandpaper don't hold a hammer much anymore, just a coffee mug brewed every morning before dawn. I set out 2 like always, one for me, one for her memory. The cottage we shared, weathered gray, now stands quiet behind me, roses climbing the fence she loved. Yesterday I was out at the smallest resort fixing a fence the waves had battered. Took my old toolbox, drove nails straight, sweat beading, despite the chill. A guy at the pier smirked, "Carver, you're too old for this. Let the young bucks take over." His words stung like salt in a cut, but I kept at it, each nail a jab back at the idea I'm past my prime. I wasn't just fixing a fence, I was keeping Evelyn's lights burning, proving I'm not some washed-up relic. The real storm, though, isn't the sea. It's brewing closer inside my own family. I feel it in my bones, the way you know the tide's turning before you see it. David's not the same kid who carved boats with me. He's grown distant, his eyes sliding away when we talk. And Sarah, his wife, she's got a lawyer's tongue, sharp and slick. Last time we met before their wedding, her gaze was cold, sizing me up, like I was a rusty tool she could toss. It's been nagging at me. Why didn't Evelyn trust David with the truth about the resorts? Why keep it locked in that safe, with only me holding the key? That question blinks in my head like the lighthouse warning of a fight I didn't see coming. I'm no businessman, never was. I'm a guy who knows wood, who can feel a beam's strength by running my hand along it. But Evelyn didn't leave me $75 million to play tycoon. She left me a fortress. Those resorts, those lighthouses, they're her heart, our life's work. And I'll be damned if I let them slip away. The guy at the pier, the world, they can call me old. But I'm not out. I fixed that fence, didn't I? Straightened every post, drove every nail. And I'll keep standing, key in my pocket, coffee steaming, ready for whatever's coming. Because something's off Sarah's eyes. David's silence, the way the air feels before a gale. Evelyn saw it, and now I'm starting to. The lighthouses aren't just resorts. They're my line in the sand. The grit of Wilmington's beach sand still clung to my boots from that night under the lighthouse. Evelyn's words stuck in my head like a song on repeat. Don't sign anything, Tom. A week later, I'm at my son David's wedding, and that warning feels like a rope I'm clinging to in a storm. I'm Tom Carver, 68, a carpenter who's weathered more squalls than I can count, but none like the one brewing in my own blood. I walked into the Wilmington Grand Ballroom, my old suit pressed as best I could get, it a boutonniere pinned crooked on my lapel. The place sparkled chandeliers throwing light like stars, tables draped in crisp white. I figured I'd be up front near David, the kid I taught to carve boats from driftwood. But when I found my seat, my name was scratched on a card at table 17, shoved by the emergency exit, half-blocked by a wall of purple orchids. It wasn't a mix-up. It was a gut punch. I wasn't just out of place. I was invisible in my own family. I sat smoothing my tie, trying to swallow the sting, as I watched David across the room, grinning in his tux, bright as a summer dawn. Next to him stood Sarah, his bride, a lawyer, with a smile sharp enough to slice through oak. She glided over during the cocktail hour, her dress catching the light like she owned every inch of the place. "Dad," she said, voice smooth as varnish, "you holding up?" "Okay." Then she patted my arm like I was some kid who'd wandered off, and added, "We'll take care of you, Dad." Her eyes didn't match cold, sizing me up like a board she'd toss if it didn't measure right. I nodded, throat tight, and mumbled, "Thanks." David trailed behind her, holding her hand, but his eyes slid to the floor, the bar, anywhere but me. That wasn't my David the boy who'd yank my sleeve, begging to carve one more wave into his boat, shouting, "We're the kings of the sea." "Dad!" I clapped for the toasts, raised my glass with the crowd, but inside my chest cracked open. Families don't hide you behind flowers by accident. This was a shove, and it hurt like hell. Then Sarah leaned across my table, her perfume sharp, and said, "So, Dad, how's it going with Evelyn's resorts? Must be a lot to keep track of. How many are there, 7? 8. Her tone was light, but her eyes were locked on like a hawk circling. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. I'd never told her a thing about the resorts, not a number, not a dollar. Evelyn's voice echoed, "Don't tell anyone." How the hell did she know? My gut twisted, but I kept my face blank. Doing fine, I shrugged, voice steady. She patted my arm again, that same condescending tap, and said, "We'll help you out, Dad. Don't worry." Her smile was thin like a blade before she drifted back to David. I watched them dance her hand, steering his shoulder, moving him like a pawn. My boy who cried when his first boat sank in the surf, and I promised we'd build another, was dancing to her tune now. It felt like I was losing him, not to a wife, but to something colder. Sitting there, those damn orchids in my face, I thought back to that summer I taught David to carve. He was 8, all elbows and knees, his knife slipping as he tried to shape a boat's hull. "Slow down, son," I'd said, guiding his hand. "Feel the wood. It tells you where to cut." He'd laughed, eyes like stars, and we worked till the sun bled gold across the beach. He hugged me tight, when we finished his boat bobbing in the tide. Now he wouldn't even look at me. Was it Sarah pulling strings? Or had I missed something, gotten too old? Too stuck in my ways? Evelyn's words cut through. The lighthouses will lead you. I gripped my mug, the warmth grounding me. I wasn't letting go, not of David, not of her legacy. Back home, the cottage was dead quiet, just the fridge's hum and the floorboards creak. I dug out my old journal, a beat-up leather thing stashed by Evelyn's safe. I scribbled what hit me, Table 17's sting, Sarah's two knowing questions, David's eyes dodging mine. Evelyn, I wrote, something's wrong. I'm holding on, but it's tearing me up. Putting it down was like driving a nail solid real. It wasn't just about sorting my head. It was proof I wasn't some soft old fool blind to the storm coming. I slipped the safe key into my pocket, poured coffee into 2 mugs, one for me, one for her memory. Silence settled, but it wasn't weak. It was watchful, like a lighthouse beam slicing the dark. Lying awake that night, the ocean's roar mixed with memories of David's laugh, his small hands clutching my flannel when storms shook the house. I kept seeing Sarah's sharp eyes, hearing her voice 7-8. She knew too much, and I knew too little. Evelyn's warning wasn't just her being careful, it was a flare signaling a fight I hadn't named yet. I wasn't ready to call it betrayal, but the ground was shifting under me. The next knock on my door, I knew would bring trouble, and I'd be ready, key in hand, coffee steaming, standing firm. This wasn't just about resorts. It was about keeping my light burning for Evelyn, for David, for me. A week after David's wedding, where I sat like a ghost behind those damn orchids. Evelyn's warning, "Don't sign anything." Tom was still ringing in my ears. I'm Tom Carver, 68, a carpenter who's faced down hurricanes, but the storm brewing in my family felt like it could knock me flat. I was in my workshop, sanding a piece of driftwood into a lighthouse model. The smell of pine dust grounding me when a sharp knock hit the door. Not the neighborly kind, more like a demand. I opened it, and there stood Sarah, my son's new wife, her briefcase gleaming like a shark's fin. Next to her was a guy in a suit so crisp it could have cut paper, his smile as fake as a $3 bill. "Dad," Sarah said, her voice smooth as a used car salesman's, "we thought we'd swing by to check on you." Her eyes, though, weren't checking, they were hunting. They followed me to the kitchen where I set out 2 coffee mugs, out of habit, one for me, one for Evelyn's memory. Sarah sat crossing her legs like she owned the place, while the lawyer slid a thick folder across my table. "Durable power of attorney," he said, tapping it like it was a winning lottery ticket. Sarah leaned in, her smile all teeth. "Dad, you're on your own now, and at your age, things can get complicated. This just lets us handle the resorts, the accounts keep you safe." She paused, then added, "David's worried sick about you. We're working on a big real estate project, and we'd hate for Evelyn's properties to get tangled up." My spoon clinked against the mug, loud in the quiet. Real estate project? I'd never told her a damn thing about the resorts, let alone their value. Evelyn's voice roared in my head. "Don't tell anyone." Sarah's concern was as real as plastic flowers, and her eyes, sharp greedy, betrayed it. I stared at the folder, my gut twisting. Part of me wanted to believe Sarah cared, that David sent her out of love. I pictured him at 8, crying when his toy boat sank, clinging to my flannel, as I promised we'd build another. Was he really worried? Or was she pulling his strings? Her words at the wedding. 7-8 flashed back, and now this project. She knew too much, and I was starting to see the shape of her game. My chest burned with anger, but I swallowed it, keeping my face blank. Silence was my shield, just like Evelyn taught me. "I'll think it over," I said, voice steady as a nailed beam. Sarah's smile tightened, her fingers twitching like she expected me to grab a pen right then. The lawyer cleared his throat, but I didn't budge. They left Sarah tossing a "we'll be back" Dad over her shoulder like a threat wrapped in sugar. I stood at the door, watching their car kick up gravel, my hand tight on the safe key in my pocket. Alone, I felt the weight of it all. David's averted eyes at the wedding, Sarah's fake concern, that folder sitting like a snake on my table. I wanted to call David, hear his voice, ask if he was in on this. But what if he was? The thought cut deeper than any saw. I wasn't just fighting for Evelyn's resort's $75 million in brick and wood. I was fighting to keep my son, to keep the man I was. Evelyn's warning wasn't just words. It was a lighthouse beam cutting through fog. I wasn't signing a damn thing, but I needed help to stand my ground. I grabbed my phone and dialed Clara, Evelyn's old friend, the one who'd seen through sharks like Sarah before. She picked up on the second ring, her voice warm but no nonsense. "Tom, what's got you rattled?" I spilled it. Sarah, the lawyer, the folder, her project. Clara didn't miss a beat. "That's no family visit, Tom. That's a heist in heels. Come to my place tomorrow. I'll get you to someone who can lock this down." Her words were like a plank under my feet, steadying me. Before bed, I checked every lock in the house, front door, back door, even the rusty one on the shed. It wasn't just about keeping burglars out. It was about proving I wasn't the old fool Sarah thought. I turned each key, slow, deliberate feeling, the click like a promise to Evelyn. The coffee mug sat cold, but the second one stayed out for her. Silence wasn't weakness. It was my armor, and I was gearing up. That night, I lay awake, the ocean's growl mixing with Sarah's voice in my head. "At your age." I saw David's face dodging my eyes and felt the ache of losing him, not to time, but to her. But Evelyn's words held me. "The lighthouses will lead you." I wasn't letting go, not of her legacy, not of our boy. Sarah thought she had me pegged, but she didn't know the fight in me. I'd locked the doors, called Clara, and taken the first step. The storm was coming, and I'd be ready, key and pocket coffee ready, standing tall. The morning after Sarah's slick lawyer left that snake of a folder on my kitchen table, I was still reeling from her fake concern and those greedy eyes. I'm Tom Carver, 68, a carpenter who's faced down storms, but Sarah's at your age jab, and her talk of a real estate project had me rattled. Evelyn's warning, "Don't sign anything," was burning in my mind like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog. I was sitting at my table, coffee gone cold in 2 mugs, one for me, one for her memory, when a soft knock came, 3 taps like a code. I opened the door, and there was Clara, Evelyn's old friend, holding a warm apple pie, steam curling up like a hug. "Brought pie," she said, stepping in, her silver hair catching the light. "And ears. Something's got you spooked, Tom." Her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, spotted the folder under a placemat before I said a word. Clara, 65. A widow who'd lost her husband to the sea had a way of seeing right through you. I poured coffee and we sat, the pie's cinnamon smell softening the room. I spilled it all. Sarah's visit, the power of attorney, her project talk, how she knew too much about Evelyn's resorts. Clara's jaw didn't drop. She just exhaled like she'd seen this play before. "That's no family call, Tom," she said, cutting a slice. "That's a heist in heels. Sarah's circling your lighthouses like a shark." Her words hit like a hammer on a nail, solid true. She told me about her own fight years back, when a slick nephew tried to swindle her savings after her husband died. Promised to manage my money, she said, her voice dry as driftwood. I said no. Hurt like hell, but I'm still standing. She tapped the folder. This swings one way out of your hands. You need backup. My chest loosened like I'd been holding my breath since Sarah left. Clara wasn't just a friend, she was a lifeline pulling me out of the dark. She leaned forward, her coffee mug steaming. Evelyn saw this coming. She told me once, quiet-like, she didn't trust Sarah's smile. Said she left something in her safe, a letter, maybe to keep you sharp. My heart skipped. A letter. In the safe I hadn't opened since her funeral, Clara didn't push, just pointed her fork. Get to Michael, Evelyn's lawyer, and come with me tomorrow to the Rusty Anchor Cafe. Some old salts there, know how to fend off paper sharks. I nodded, the safe key in my pocket, feeling heavier, like it was whispering Evelyn's warning all over again. Clara's words weren't just comfort. They were a call to arms, and I was ready to answer. The next day I walked into the Rusty Anchor, the air thick with coffee and fried fish. Clara led me to a corner table where three guys sat, their hands scarred like mine, eyes steady from years of facing storms. Hank Earl and Vic, veterans who'd fought more than wars. Hank, grizzled and gray, spoke first. My nephew came with a binder, all smiles, wanting to streamline my pension. Said no. Took 6 months, but he's back. Bringing beer now. Earl nodded. Niece showed up with a notary, flowers, the works. I baked a pie instead. Clear lines, no regrets. Vic, his voice low, handed me a cheat sheet. Freeze your credit, Equifax, TransUnion, Experian. Voice password at the bank. Log every call. No papers without a lawyer. I felt my shoulders drop an inch. These weren't just stories, they were battle plans, and I was in the fight. Back home, I called the bank, my voice steady as I set up a voice password, something Sarah couldn't fake. Not as sharp as I used to be, huh? I muttered, thinking of her smug pat on my arm. It wasn't just about locking accounts. It was about proving I wasn't the old fool she pegged me for. I checked the safe, fingers brushing the cold metal, but didn't open it, not yet. Clara's words about Evelyn's letter stuck with me like a lighthouse, blinking in the distance, promising answers. I wrote in my journal, Sarah's after the resorts. But I've got Clara, these guys, and Evelyn's light. I'm not alone. The loneliness that had crushed me since the wedding eased, but worry for David grew. Was he in on this? My boy who cried over a sunken boat, could he be part of her scheme? That thought cut deep, but Clara's crew gave me something to lean on. I lay awake that night, the ocean's growl outside my window. Sarah's project echoed her greedy eyes, flashing in my mind. But so did Hank's steady nod, Earl's pie story, Vic's cheat sheet. Clara's voice rang clearest. Evelyn saw this coming. I wasn't just fighting for $75 in resorts. I was fighting for David, for Evelyn, for me, the safe key pressed against my thigh, and I felt its strength, not just mine, but from a crew who'd faced sharks and won. The storm was closer now, but I wasn't adrift. I had a light to follow, and I was ready to dig for Evelyn's truth. Clara's words were still rattling in my head. Sarah's visit was a heist in heels, and Evelyn might have left a letter in the safe. I'm Tom Carver. A carpenter who's faced storms, but this one, brewing in my own family, was cutting deeper than any saw. I couldn't shake Sarah's smug pat on my arm, her talk of a real estate project, or the way she knew about Evelyn's resorts. It was Tuesday afternoon, and I was in the spare room staring at Evelyn's old desktop computer, a clunky thing we'd used to track invoices for the resorts. Clara's hint about a letter had me thinking maybe Evelyn left something else, something digital. I wasn't some tech whiz, but I'd fixed enough wiring to know my way around a keyboard. I powered it up, the hum like a heartbeat, and started poking through files, my gut telling me I'd find something. I dug into the email trash folder almost by accident, and there it was, a deleted message from 3 years back, sent to Evelyn from some suite at Coastal Ventures Realty. My hands froze on the mouse. The subject: valuation request for Wilmington Resorts. The email was cold all business. Per your discussion with Ms. Sarah Carver, we estimate the 7 properties at $75 million, reflecting true market value. Awaiting your approval to proceed. My heart slammed against my ribs. Sarah. Talking to realtors before Evelyn died. I'd never breathed a word about the resort's value, and neither had Evelyn. She was tight as a drum about that. The email hinted at a middleman, someone feeding Sarah info, but who I felt like I'd been sucker punched. Evelyn was sick, then barely holding on, and Sarah was already circling, sniffing out the true value of our lighthouses. I sat back, the screen's glow burning my eyes. Betrayal hit like a blade, sharp and cold. Was David in on this? My boy who'd sobbed when his toy boat sank? Who I'd promised we'd build another? Could he have known Sarah was scheming while Evelyn was dying? The thought tore me up, but anger burned hotter. Sarah wasn't just after the resort, she was trampling Evelyn's grave. I wanted to storm over to David's, demand answers, but Evelyn's voice steadied me. Don't sign. Don't tell. I wasn't letting this slide, but I had to play it smart. Silence wasn't giving up. It was my edge, like a carpenter measuring twice before a cut. I copied the email to a thumb drive, hands shaking, but steady enough to get it done. I wasn't some washed-up carpenter who couldn't handle a computer. I called up Tommy Reed, an old buddy who'd done maintenance at Coastal Ventures years back. Tom, he said, voice gravelly, that email's fishy. Sarah was cozy with some exec there asking questions way before Evelyn passed. I'll dig, but watch your back. His words were like a nail-driven true proof. I wasn't crazy. I scribbled in my journal, Sarah's been at this for years. Evelyn saw it. I'm catching up. Writing it down didn't dull the anger, but it turned it into fuel. I wasn't just fighting for $75 million in resorts, I was fighting for Evelyn's trust, for David, for the man I still am. That night, the ocean roared outside, matching the storm in my chest. I poured coffee into 2 mugs, one for me, one for Evelyn's memory, and stared at the safe in the hall. Clara's words about a letter nagged at me, but I couldn't open it yet, not with my head spinning. Sarah's greedy eyes flashed in my mind, her voice at the wedding. 7-8. She'd been planning this since before Evelyn was gone, and I'd been blind. But not anymore. I gripped the safe key, its weight grounding me. I wasn't tech-savvy, but I'd backed up that email called Tommy taken the first swing. The lighthouses were still mine, and I'd be damned if Sarah touched them. David's face, his averted eyes at the wedding, haunted me. I needed him to be my boy, not her pawn. Something was coming. Something bigger than a folder on my table. I'd be ready. Coffee, cold silence, sharp, waiting for her next move. That deleted email from Sarah to the realtor dug up from Evelyn's old computer was still burning a hole in my head. It proved she'd been sniffing around the resorts before Evelyn even passed $75 million worth of our lighthouses. I'm Tom Carver, D8, a carpenter who's weathered storms, but this one, stirred up by my own family, was tearing me apart. A few days after Clara and the old salts at the Rusty Anchor gave me their battle plans, Sarah called all sugar and spice, inviting me to a family party at one of Evelyn's resorts. Just a get-together, Dad, she said, voice smooth as glass. Bring David closer. My gut screamed it was a setup, but I went. I needed to see David to know if my boy, the one I taught to carve boats, was in on her game. The resort was one of Evelyn's favorites, a low-slung building with cedar beams and windows catching the sunset like fire. The party was in full swing, folks milling with wine glasses, laughter bouncing off the walls, the ocean growling outside. Sarah greeted me at the door, her smile sharp as a tack. "Dad's so glad you made it," she said, patting my arm like I was a kid who'd wandered in. Her eyes flicked over my flannel shirt, and she added, "You must be tired keeping up with all these resorts." That jab tired hit like salt in a cut, but I just nodded, scanning for David. He was by the bar holding a drink, his eyes sliding away when I caught them. My chest tightened. The kid who'd sobbed when his boat sank, who I'd promised we'd build another, was standing 10 feet away but felt a world apart. Sarah pulled me to a table, her voice loud enough for others to hear. "Dad, these resorts are a lot for anyone to handle, especially now. You're not as quick as you used to be, right?" She laughed light, but cutting, like I was a joke everyone got, but me. "David and I could take the load off, manage things. Let you relax." David nodded, his jaw tight, still not meeting my eyes. "Yeah, Dad, it's for the best," he mumbled like he was reading a script. My blood boiled, but I kept my mouth shut. Evelyn's words echoing, "Don't sign, don't tell." Sarah's not quick dig was no slip. She was painting me as a doddering old man, softening me up for her next move. I smiled tight and said, "I'll think on it." Her eyes narrowed just a flicker, like she'd expected me to fold. I stepped away, needing air, and wandered to the deck overlooking the beach. That's when I heard her Sarah behind a partition whispering into her phone. "It's perfect," she hissed, voice low but clear. "He's slipping, everyone sees it. We'll push the paperwork soon. The plan's airtight." My heart slammed. Airtight plan. Was this her real estate project from before, the one tied to that email I pressed against the wall, holding my breath? Her words slicing through David's on board. "He thinks it's for Tom's own good." My knees buckled. David, my boy, caught in her net. I wanted to barge in, demand answers, but silence held me back, sharp as a blade. Evelyn taught me to measure twice, cut once. I needed more before I swung. Back inside, I noticed a flickering light above the buffet, a loose bulb in one of Evelyn's fixtures. Everyone was chatting, ignoring it, but I couldn't. I grabbed a stepladder from the maintenance closet, my hands steady, despite the ache in my chest. I climbed up, tools clinking, and tightened the bulb till it glowed steady, casting light over the room. A few folks clapped, half joking, but David watched, his eyes lingering like he remembered something. I caught his gaze and said, "Still got it, son, like when we fixed boats together." He flinched, then looked away, but I saw a crack in his armor. Sarah shot me a look, her smile gone cold. I'd just reminded everyone I wasn't the frail old man she painted. Back home, the cottage was quiet, the ocean's roar a dull ache outside. I poured coffee into 2 mugs, one for me, one for Evelyn, and opened my journal. "Sarah's got a plan," I wrote. "David's caught, but I saw something in his eyes tonight. I'm not done fighting." My hands shook, not from age, but from the hurt of seeing my boy slip away. Sarah's voice on that call, airtight, played on repeat, but so did David's flicker of memory. I gripped the safe key in my pocket, thinking of Clara's hint about a letter. The storm was closing in, and I was ready, silent, watchful, not the washed-up fool, Sarah thought. Something was coming, and I'd be waiting. Sarah's whispered airtight plan at the resort party was still ringing in my ears. Her voice cold as steel, plotting to snatch Evelyn's $75 million lighthouses. I'm Tom Carver. Mediate a carpenter who's faced storms, but this one, whipped up by my own family, was shaking me to the core. After hearing her on that phone call saying David was on board, I could barely sleep. It was a Thursday night, and I was in my cottage, the ocean growling outside, when I saw a strange car parked across the street, its headlights slicing through my curtains like a knife. The engine idled low and mean, and those beams swept my windows slow like someone was watching. My gut churned. This wasn't some random joyrider. Sarah's plan was closing in, and I'd bet my last nail she'd hired a snoop to tail me. I stood frozen, heart pounding, peering through a crack in the blinds. The car lingered, then peeled off, leaving me with a chill that wasn't from the sea breeze. I wanted to brush it off, tell myself I was seeing ghosts, but then my phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't know. "Meet me at the beach 10 p.m. tomorrow. We need to discuss your properties." No name, no details, just a hook baited to drag me out. My hands shook, not from fear, but from a fire igniting inside. Sarah thought I was some old fool easy to spook, but she was dead wrong. That car, the text, it wasn't just a threat. It was proof she was playing dirty, and I wasn't about to roll over. Evelyn's voice cut through, "Don't sign. Don't tell." I wasn't letting her lighthouses or my dignity slip away. I sat at the kitchen table pouring coffee into 2 mugs, one for me, one for Evelyn's memory, trying to steady my nerves. The safe key in my pocket felt heavier, like it was urging me to fight. Sarah's game was bigger than I'd thought, and David's part in it stung like salt in a cut. Was my boy, who'd cried in my arms when his toy boat sank, really helping her set this trap? The thought tore me up, but I pushed it down. Anger was fuel now, and I wasn't wasting it. I'd fixed fences, locked doors, backed up that damning email. Sarah wasn't dealing with a pushover. I needed to be one step ahead, and I knew just the trick. Next morning, I rummaged through my workshop, pulling out old security cameras I'd scavenged from a resort job years back. I wasn't some tech hotshot, but I'd wired enough houses to know how to rig a setup. I spent the day mounting 2 cameras, one by the front door, one in the back, nails, driven straight wires, tucked tight. "Not so washed up, huh, Sarah?" I muttered, tightening the last screw. It wasn't just about catching her snoop. It was about proving I could still build something solid like the lighthouses Evelyn and I made. I called Clara, my lifeline, and read her the text. "That's Sarah's doing," she said, voice sharp. "I'll check that number, bet it ties to her law firm." By evening, she called back. "Number's a burner, but it's linked to a paralegal at Sarah's office. She's playing hardball, Tom." Clara's words were like a match to kindling. Sarah wasn't just scheming. She was stalking me, I wrote in my journal, the leather creaking under my hand. Sarah's got eyes on me, but I'm watching back. David's in deep. God, I hope not too deep. The words didn't ease the ache, but they sharpened my focus. I thought of that summer with David, 8 years old, his face crumpling when his boat sank. "Don't let it go. Dad," he'd begged. I'd promised we'd build another. Now I was promising Evelyn and myself to save her lighthouses. That car, that text, they were Sarah's move, but I'd made mine. The cameras were rolling, Clara was digging, and I was ready for whatever she threw next. The ocean roared outside, but I wasn't scared anymore. Silence wasn't fear. It was my edge, and I was sharpening it. Something was coming bigger than a text or a car. I'd be waiting, coffee cold key in hand, lighthouses standing tall. That strange car's headlights and the burner text demanding a beach meet had me on edge like a nail half-driven, waiting for the hammer. I'm Tom Carver, 68, a carpenter who's faced storms, but Sarah's airtight plan to snatch Evelyn's $75 million lighthouses was hitting harder than any hurricane. I'd rigged cameras around my cottage to catch her snoop, and Clara's call confirmed the text came from her law firm's orbit. I was ready for her next move, but when it came, it wasn't a car or a text. It was a call from the bank that nearly knocked me flat. It was a Monday morning, and I was sanding a piece of driftwood in my workshop. The smell of pine dust grounding me when my phone buzzed. The bank manager, Karen, sounded shaken. "Tom, someone tried to transfer ownership of the smallest resort, forged your signature. We flagged it. Your voice password stopped them cold." My heart slammed against my ribs. Forged, I gripped the safe key in my pocket. Evelyn's warning screaming, "Don't sign. Don't tell." I called Michael Evelyn's lawyer, my hands shaking as I dialed. He was at my place in an hour, his beat-up briefcase thumping on the kitchen table. "It's Sarah," he said, flipping through bank records. "A paralegal at her firm bribed a clerk to push the transfer. They didn't count on your security." Sarah's perfect plan from the resort party flashed in my mind. Her whispered phone call, her smug, "He's slipping." This was it, her move to gut Evelyn's legacy. My blood boiled, but a colder fear hit harder. Was David in on this? I sat at the table pouring coffee into 2 mugs, one for me, one for Evelyn's memory, the steam curling like a ghost. I felt like I was sinking, like one of David's toy boats we'd built as kids, swamped by a wave. I pulled out my journal, the leather creaking, and wrote Sarah's forging papers now. David. God, is he helping her? The words tore at me. I pictured him at 8, his face crumpling when his boat sank in the surf, begging, "Don't let it go, Dad. I'd promised we'd build another." Now I was losing him not to the sea, but to her. Despair clawed, but Evelyn's voice cut through. "The lighthouses will lead you." I wasn't done. Sarah thought I was a washed-up old man, but I'd rigged cameras, set passwords. Her perfect plan was unraveling, and I was damn well going to pull the thread. Michael leaned over his glasses, slipping. "Tom, that forged transfer's a lead. Let's check the resort's security cameras. Maybe they caught something." My mind snapped back to Sarah's call at the party, her voice low behind the partition. If she was bold enough to forge papers, she might have slipped up at the resort. I wasn't some tech hotshot, but I'd wired enough houses to know cameras don't lie. We drove to the resort, the smallest one, where I'd fixed that flickering bulb at the party. In the office, we pulled the footage, my heart pounding as the screen flickered to life. I wasn't sure what we'd find, but I knew it'd be big, something to blow Sarah's scheme wide open. I scribbled in my journal, "Checking cameras. Evelyn, guide me." Writing it steadied me, like driving a nail true. This wasn't just about saving the resorts. It was about saving David, proving I wasn't the fool Sarah pegged. We spent hours poring over grainy footage, Michael's pen scratching notes. I wasn't a detective, but I knew how to spot a flaw in a beam, and this felt the same, searching for the crack in her plan. My hands didn't shake now. They were steady, like when I carved wood with David. I thought of him at the party, his eyes flickering when I fixed that bulb, like he remembered who we were. Could he really be part of this forgery? The question burned, but I pushed it down. I had to focus, find the evidence, protect the lighthouses. Michael looked up, his voice low. "We're close, Tom. If we find something we'll need to show David, make him see." I nodded, my jaw tight. I wasn't just fighting Sarah. I was fighting for my boy, to pull him back from her grip. Back home, the ocean's roar matched the storm in my chest. I poured another coffee, set out the second mug for Evelyn. The safe key pressed against my thigh, a reminder of her letter Clara mentioned. Sarah was coming for everything, my lighthouses, my son, but I was ready. The cameras, the journal, Michael's notes, they were my tools now, not just hammers and nails. I wasn't the old fool, she thought. Something was on that footage, and it'd be the hammer to her perfect plan. The storm was here, but I was standing silent, sharp, ready for the fight. That bank alert about Sarah's forged signature was a punch-to-the-gut proof she was coming for Evelyn's $75 million lighthouses with both barrels. I'm Tom Carver, 68, a carpenter who's faced storms. But this one, Sarah's airtight plan, and David's part in it was tearing me up worse than any hurricane. Michael, my lawyer, had pushed me to check the resort's security cameras after her scam fell apart at the bank. I'd rigged my own cameras at home, but the idea of catching Sarah on tape at her own game lit a fire in me. It was late afternoon when we sat in the resort's tiny office, the same place I'd fixed that flickering bulb at her party. The screen flickered to life, grainy but clear, and what we found wasn't just evidence, it was a damn sledgehammer. The footage was from the night of the party, time-stamped right after I'd overheard Sarah's perfect plan call behind the partition. There she was in a corner of the resort's office, talking to a slick suit with a briefcase, some real estate hotshot. By the look of him, Sarah leaned in, her laugh sharp as a blade. "Tom's slipping," she said, voice dripping with scorn. "An old carpenter like him. He's half gone already, thinks he's still sharp. But he'll never catch us." My blood boiled, my hands clenching the chair. She went on, "David believes his dad's losing it. Memories shot. We'll push the paperwork, flip the resorts for a quick $80 million. Easy." The suit nodded, smirking. "He won't see it coming," Sarah said, grinning like she'd already won. "The old man's done." Michael paused the video, his eyes meeting mine. I wanted to smash the screen, but Evelyn's voice held me steady. "Don't sign. Don't tell." Sarah thought I was a washed-up fool, but she'd just dug her own grave. My chest was a furnace rage at Sarah's sneer pain at David's betrayal. He believed I was losing it. My boy who'd carved boats with me, who'd begged me to save his sunken toy at 8. I saw him in my mind, his small hands gripping my flannel eyes, bright with trust. Now he thought I was fading, thanks to her poison. I wanted to storm over, shove the tape in his face. But I'd learned from Evelyn, measure twice, cut once. Rage wasn't enough. I needed strategy. Michael put a hand on my shoulder. "Tom, we've got her. But David needs to see this or he'll stay in her net." I nodded, jaw tight. I wasn't just fighting for the resorts. I was fighting for my suit to pull him back from her lies. I invited David to the resort the next day, the one where we'd carved his first boat, the place Evelyn loved most. I didn't tell him why, just said, "Come by, son. Need to talk." He showed up, his face, drawn eyes, dodging mine, like at the wedding. We sat in the office, the ocean growling outside, and I poured coffee into 2 mugs, one for me, one for Evelyn's memory. "David," I said, keeping my voice steady, "watch this." I hit play. Sarah's voice filled the room, her laugh, her old man's done her lie about my memory. David's face went white, his hands gripping the table. "Dad." "No," she said, "you were forgetting things, needed help." His voice cracked, anger flaring. She lied. I knotted my throat tight. "She's been lying since before your mom died." That email I found, she was pricing the resorts, while Evelyn was still breathing. David's slumped eyes red. "I thought I was helping you," he whispered. "She said it was for your good." I wanted to hug him like when he was a kid crying over that sunken boat, but I held back. "Son," I said, "I taught you to carve wood, to feel the grain. You know what's true. Look at me, I'm not slipping." I pointed to the bulb I'd fixed at the party, still glowing steady. "We built boats here, you and me. You're my boy, not her pawn." He looked at me, really looked, and something shifted, a crack in the wall Sarah built. "I'm sorry, Dad." He choked out, tears falling. I didn't see. I gripped his shoulder, my own eyes burning. You see now. I wrote in my journal that night. The leather, creaking Sarah's tape showed her colors. David's breaking free, but it hurts like hell. The safe key pressed against my thigh, Clara's hint about Evelyn's letter nagging me. I hadn't opened the safe yet, but I felt it something bigger was waiting. Sarah thought she'd outsmarted me, but her smug "he'll never catch us" was her undoing. I wasn't just an old carpenter. I was a father, and I'd fight to keep my son and Evelyn's lighthouses. The ocean roared outside, but my anger was cooling into something sharper resolve. I'd show David the truth, and Sarah would face the storm she'd stirred. The tape was my hammer, and I was ready to swing. That video of Sarah laughing, calling me a slipping old carpenter who'd never catch her $80 million scam, was a gut shot I couldn't shake. I'm Tom Carver, 68, a guy who's faced storms, but seeing my son David believe I was losing my mind thanks to Sarah's lies cut deeper than any blade. I'd shown him the tape at the resort, watched his face crumble, but I knew we weren't done. I needed him to see the truth, not just about Sarah, but about us. So I asked him to come back to the same resort the next day, the one where we'd carved his first boat as a kid. I'm no shrink, but I figured the place Evelyn loved most might crack open something real. I was sitting in the office, coffee steaming in 2 mugs, one for me, one for her memory when David walked in, his eyes red, shoulders hunched like he was carrying a load heavier than mine. "Dad," he started, voice sharp. "You're making Sarah look bad, filming her like some creep. What's wrong with you?" His words hit like a hammer, but I saw the shake in his hands, the way his eyes darted, like he was fighting himself. I kept my voice steady, like when I taught him to carve wood. "Son, sit, watch it again." I played the tape, Sarah's sneer, her "he's half gone," jab her lie that I was forgetting things. David's jaw tightened, his fists balled up. "She said, 'You were slipping, Dad. I thought I was helping you.'" His voice broke anger, turning to pain. I leaned forward, mug warm in my hands. "David, you know me. I fixed that bulb at the party, didn't I? Same as when we carved your first boat right here, you begging to make it float." His eyes flicked to the window where the ocean churned, and I saw it a flicker, like he was 8 again, shouting, "Kings of the sea," when we finished that boat. "She lied, son," I said soft. "She's been lying since before your mom died." He slumped, tears spilling. "I'm sorry, Dad. I let her convince me you were gone." My throat burned, wanting to hug him, like when he cried over that sunken boat. But I held back. "You're not gone," I said. "You're my boy, but you gotta see her for what she is." Just then, Clara burst in, her silver hair wild from the wind. "Tom, I checked the safe like you asked," she said, holding a yellowed envelope. "Evelyn left this for you." My heart stopped. The letter she'd hinted at, locked away all this time. I tore it open, hands shaking, and read her words. "Tom, Sarah's smile hides a shark. She asked about the resorts when I was sick. Don't trust her. There's a bank account code, 5281, with records to protect you. Keep the lighthouses burning." I froze. Evelyn saw it all, even then. The code 5281. Our wedding date felt like her hand on mine again. David read it over my shoulder, his breath hitching. "Mom knew," he whispered. "She tried to warn us." I nodded, my own eyes stinging. She always saw the storm coming. Clara's voice cut in firm. "That code unlocks a safety deposit box. Tom, probably more evidence, deal logs maybe. Sarah's done for." I felt it then, a rush, not just anger, but something sweeter. Sarah thought she'd outsmarted us, but Evelyn's letter and that tape were her undoing. I wasn't just mad anymore. I was ready to nail her to the wall legally. But looking at David, his face wet with tears, I felt a tug. Forgiveness not all the way, but enough to keep the door open. "We'll fix this, son," I said, gripping his shoulder. "Together." I pulled out a block of cedar from the office drawer, same kind we used for his boat. "Come on," I said, handing him a knife. "Let's carve something, start small." His hands shook, but he took it, cutting slow like he was finding himself again. I guided him like I did when he was a kid, saying, "Feel the grain, son. It'll tell you where to go." He managed a half smile, the first I'd seen in months. My heart lifted, but the fight wasn't over. I wrote in my journal that night, the leather creaking, David's waking up, Sarah's going down, Evelyn's still leading us, the safe key pressed against my thigh, that code 5281 burning in my mind. Sarah's "he'll never catch us" was her mistake, and I was ready to make her pay. The lighthouses stood, and so did I, coffee cold, heart steady, waiting for the hammer to fall. David's tears and Evelyn's letter, her warning about Sarah's shark smile, and that bank code lit a fire under me. I'm Tom Carver, 68, a carpenter who's weathered storms, but seeing my boy wake up to Sarah's lies was a victory sweeter than any I'd known. That video of her sneering, calling me half-gone to scam $75 million was our hammer, and Michael, my lawyer, was ready to swing. I was sitting at my kitchen table, coffee steaming in 2 mugs. One for me, one for Evelyn's memory, when Michael called. "Tom," he said, voice steady as a nailed beam. "We are filing today. The tape, Evelyn's letter, the bank's fraud alert. It's airtight. Sarah's done." My heart thumped not with rage anymore, but with something quieter. Justice coming slow and sure, like the tide. Michael moved fast, piling the evidence, Sarah's video, her forged signature, Evelyn's letter and bank records, into a legal sledgehammer. By week's end, the cops were investigating and Sarah's law firm got wind. Clara called me from town, her voice sharp with glee. "Tom, they canned her, kicked her out under a rainstorm, briefcase and all." I could picture it, Sarah, her sharp suits soaked, standing alone in the downpour, her smug "he'll never catch us" washed away. It wasn't just sweet. It was right. She'd played dirty, from that email before Evelyn died to hiring a snoop to tail me. Now the law was closing in, and her high and mighty lawyer act was crumbling. I felt a grin creep up, but it faded fast. David was still my boy, caught in her net, and I ached for him. That night my phone rang, Sarah, her voice spitting venom. "You think you've won, old man," she snarled. "You're just a washed-up carpenter who got lucky." I was this close to saving my career, proving I'm the best in this game. Her words were a last-ditch swing, but they landed like a dull blade, saving her career. That's what this was about, her ego, not family. I let her rant, my silence sharp as ever. "Talk to Michael," I said, calm as a still sea, and hung up. The law had her now, and no amount of yelling could undo that tape. Her best in the game talk only made her uglier. She'd trampled Evelyn's grave, and David's trust for a pat on the back. I scribbled in my journal, "Sarah's down, but David's hurting. I've got to keep him close." The ache for David didn't fade, but the fire in me wasn't all anger anymore. It was peace, hard won. I wasn't just fighting Sarah. I was keeping Evelyn's lighthouses burning. I drove to the smallest resort, the one she'd loved most, and started fixing it up. New paint, tightened beams, a sign out front. Reopening soon. Folks in town stopped by, some clapping my back, saying, "Carver, you're tougher than the storms." I wasn't some doddering old fool. I was leading like Evelyn taught me. Each nail I drove felt like a promise to her, to David, to myself. The resorts weren't just 75 millimeters in brick, they were our life, and I'd make damn sure they stood tall. I sat on the porch that evening, the ocean's growl softer now, coffee cooling in my mugs. The safe key pressed against my thigh, and I thought of Evelyn's code 5281, our wedding date. It wasn't just evidence, it was her love still guiding me. Sarah's downfall felt good, but not as good as knowing David was starting to see. I still hurt for him caught in her lies, but I'd opened a crack in that wall. My journal lay open and I wrote, "Justice hit, quiet, but hard. David's still mine." Evelyn's lights burn on. The porch light flicked on, glowing against the dusk. Sarah was out, soaked and broken, but I was here, standing firm. The storm had hit, and I'd held. The lighthouses were safe, and so was my heart, ready for David to come home, ready for the next dawn. Sarah's downfall canned from her law firm, soaked in the rain, her perfect plan smashed by that tape, and Evelyn's letter felt like a storm finally breaking. I'm Tom Carver, 68, a carpenter who's faced gales, but nothing hit harder than my own family turning on me. Yet seeing David's tears, his eyes cracking open to Sarah's lies, gave me something sweeter than revenge hope. It was a quiet evening, the ocean's growl softer than usual, when I heard tires crunch on my gravel drive. I peeked through the curtain, expecting trouble, but it was David alone stepping out with something wrapped in cloth. My heart thumped, not with fear, but with a flicker of something I hadn't felt since he was a kid. I opened the door, and he stood there, eyes red but steady, holding out a small wooden carving, a lighthouse, its edges rough but true, like the ones we'd built together. "Dad," he said, voice low, "I made this. I'm sorry." We sat at my kitchen table, the same one where Sarah's snake of a folder had landed months back. I poured coffee into 2 mugs, one for me, one for Evelyn's memory, the steam curling like a promise. David set the lighthouse carving between us, his fingers tracing its grooves. "I was wrong," he said, voice breaking. "Sarah had me thinking you were slipping, that I was saving you. I should have trusted you." My throat tightened, picturing him at 8 sobbing when his toy boat sank, begging me to fix it. I wanted to pull him close, like back then, but I let him talk. "I'm figuring things out, Dad," he said, eyes down. "Sarah and it's not working. I might walk away." That hit me. Part relief, part ache. He was finding his way back, but the road was rough. I nodded, gripping my mug. "You're my boy David. Always will be. We'll carve a new path, you and me." We talked about Evelyn, the way she'd stand on the beach, hair wild, shouting orders, while we hammered beams for her lighthouses. "She'd have loved this," I said, tapping his carving. "You got her fire in you." He smiled, a real one, the kind I hadn't seen since he was a kid, running through the surf. It wasn't all fixed, his hurt was raw, and Sarah's shadow lingered, but it was a start. I felt peace settle, not the loud kind, but the quiet sort, like a tide pulling back. Sarah had called me a washed-up carpenter, thought she'd outsmart me with her $80 million scam, but she was wrong. That tape, Evelyn's letter with our wedding date code 5281, had nailed her. She was out disgraced while I was still here standing tall. But it wasn't about gloating. It was about keeping Evelyn's light burning for David, for me. Later, I walked to the beach, the same stretch where Evelyn and I built our first lighthouse. The real one blinked in the distance, steady as her heart. I pulled out my journal, its leather worn soft, and wrote, "Evelyn, I didn't sign. I'm still here, David's finding his way home. The words felt like nails driven true, not just for her, but for the man I'd become. Sarah's smug, "He'll never catch us," was dust now, and her downfall alone in that rain felt right. Not because I hated her, but because justice doesn't need a shout. It's quiet, like a lighthouse beam cutting the dark. I'd fought with evidence, with silence, with love for my boy, and I'd won not by breaking her, but by keeping what was ours. Back at the cottage, I flicked on the porch light, its glow warm against the dusk. I wasn't just some old carpenter, I was Evelyn's partner, David's dad, a man who'd held his ground. The resorts, those 75 lighthouses, were safe, reopened, thriving. Townsfolk clapped my back now, saying, "Carver, you're tougher than the storms." I didn't need their cheers. I needed this, the key in my pocket, the coffee mugs on my table, David's carving sitting proud. The door stayed ajar, not wide open, but enough for respect to walk through. Sarah was gone, her ego drowned in her own schemes. David was stumbling, but he'd carved that lighthouse. And that was enough for now. I stood on the porch, the ocean's whisper softer than before. Evelyn's light, David's carving my journal. They were my anchors. I'd faced the storm and come out whole, not because I yelled, but because I stood firm. The lighthouse blinked, and I whispered back, "We're still burning, Evelyn." The fight was over, but the hope was just beginning. Hope that David would come home, that the lighthouses would stand, that I'd keep being me. The porch light stayed on the door a little open, ready for whatever came next. Here's what I learned through this storm. Silence isn't weakness. It's a hammer nailing down your dignity when the world calls you washed up. Sarah's $75 million scam crashed because I held my ground, kept Evelyn's lighthouses burning, and pulled my boy David back with love, not shouts. Boundaries don't break families, they save them. Justice isn't lewd. It's steady like a porch light in the dark. If this story of standing tall against greedy sharks hits you, hit that like button, share it with someone fighting their own storm, and subscribe for more tales of grit and heart. Where are you at right now? Coffee cooling on a quiet porch, or late-night lights glowing? Drop a comment. I read every one. And tell me, would you hold the line like I did, or bend to keep the peace? Your story might light someone else's way.